struggling with long division today, this might help us out quite a bit. On here, I have the steps on how to divide, and I'm going to go through an example. Step number 1 says, how many times does the divisor go into current dividend? Now, if I don't know these two words, they're over here on my paper, where my divisor is always going to be on the outside. It's the number I'm splitting it into, while my dividend is what I physically have. So I have 8,142 of something, and I'm splitting it with 23 people. The quotient is what I get as my answer. Now I have this word current kind of boxed off because when I divide, I don't work with this entire number at once. I don't work with an entire dividend at once. I actually work with it in part sections, so I'm going to work with it as an 8, then the 81, and so forth. Step 2 says, if 0, place an x in the quotient spot and drop the next number. If the divisor does work, then the quotient spot is filled with how many multiples, while the closest number will be subtracted from the current dividend. I'll explain that as we go through this problem. The last thing is all you do is drop down the next number and repeat until you have your answer. So let's go ahead and jump into the problem. On here I have 8,142 divided by 23. I'm going to do that first part, and I'm looking at my current dividend. My current dividend is 8. I'm not going to worry about anything else. Does 23 go into 8? My answer is no. So if it doesn't go in, I'm going to go ahead and put an x in the quotient spot. It goes in 0 times, so I'm taking nothing out. 8 minus 0 is 8. And now I'm going to go to that part where I'm going to say drop the next number. My next number is 1, so I'm going to drop that right here. I now need to think, oh, if this is my current dividend, how many times does 23 go into 81? I'm going to put that number at the top. Let's say it goes in 3 times. I'm going to have to do the math here to make sure it goes equal to or less. So underneath here, I'm going to do 23 times 3. 3 times 3 is 9, and 3 times 2 is 6. I go back to my problem, and 69 is less than 81. If I put another 23 in here, I might be too much. So I'm going to go ahead and subtract this. Minus 69. Remember, my 3 right here is what went into the quotient spot. When I subtract these, I can't take 9 away from 1, so I borrow. This becomes a 7, and this becomes an 11. 11 minus 9 is 2, and 7 minus 6 is 1. I know that I'm wrong if this number is greater than 23. Since 12 is not greater than 23, I'm doing good. Now I move on to the next piece, where I'm going to drop down my next number. That was number 4. Drop down the next number and repeat. I need to think about how many times 23 goes into 124. Let's say I take a guess and I think it goes in 6 times. I'm going to again do my math on the bottom. 23 times 6. 6 times 3 is 18. 6 times 2 is 12, plus 1 is 13. And I look at these two numbers, I have 124 and 138. 138 is not lower, so my number 6 was actually wrong. So I'm going to change that to a 5 instead. And I'm going to go back here and I'm going to do my math. 23 times 5. 5 times 3 is 15. 5 times 2 is 10, plus 1 is 11. 115 is less, so I can go ahead and subtract that. I can't take 5 from 4, so this becomes a 1, and this becomes a 14. 14 minus 5 is 9. 1 minus 1 is 0, and 1 minus 1 is 0. I then go to step number 4 and I drop down the next number. I think to myself, how many times is 23 going to go into 92? And I have this math over here, so I know it's going to be below 5, but above 3. So let's just try and put a 4 in here. I'm going to do my math, where I have 23. I'm multiplying that by 4. 4 times 3 is 12. 4 times 2 is 8, plus 1 is 9, and I have 92. I'm not less, I'm actually equal, so I can still use that 4. So my 4 is good. I'm going to go ahead and subtract 92